So this is going to be the Recoil demo. I'm going to talk a little about state management in general. Not too much because I want to get into code. But also Recoil is a lot easier than some of the other stuff, so it won't take as long. So by the end of this, you should be able to pretty easily hook up a state management system to your existing or upcoming React application. So question one, what is state management? So currently in basic React, we have state that we can store data in our components. There's basically there's lots of kinds, but there's basically two kinds we want to think about when we're making our app. There is our sort of data that we're working with. So stuff we get from an API, stuff that is, a game state that's being displayed for the player on a page. Basically like application or business level state. And then there's component state, which is like, what's in this text box? Is it dark mode or light mode? Is this modal showing or not? So like describing the actual state of the actual component. And the intention, I think, of state in plain old React is more towards the second. That doesn't mean we can't use it for what we want. It's JavaScript. We can do whatever we want with it. It's not really particular. So we have been storing our data, our model state in React, which works totally fine up to a point, because we have to pass it, we have to pass state down through props. And, once we get more than a level or two, there's just stuff that doesn't know what it's getting. It's just brigade bucketing down. And then same with passing down callbacks to like change state back up. And then if you have to like move a piece to another part of your application, you have to rewire everything. And if it's anything but a trivial app, it gets pretty gross pretty fast. So state management systems come into play. There's a bunch of different ones, a bunch of different methodologies or philosophies. There's kind of one, not really though, built into React called context. It's more for just kind of like passing data down, not managing state. Ideally, you'd still want your state to live somewhere, not in the React tree. So the big one that most people still talk about, it's, there's more, so it's got less mind share, is Redux. Redux is super cool. Redux basically creates a store of data, your model, and then it wraps your application so that, and then you have to create these things called actions, which mutate that state in a certain way. And then your components get a dispatcher and send your actions to the dispatcher that go to there, and then use selectors to grab stuff. And it's this beautiful cycle of stuff that works great for large scale applications. It's a lot of overhead though. Setting up a Redux thing and getting your head around it is at least like a solid hour lecture, much less workshop stuff. That's it. It's super cool. I've got lots of lessons I've done on it. If you want to talk about it, I'm happy to at length because I love it. But there are different ways to do it. So there's Recoil, or there's Redux. There's one called MobX, which I don't know if it's still used a lot, but it's a pretty big one. But the new kid, relatively last couple years, is one called Recoil. And it's kind of my new go-to for small to mid-level applications. Basically, anything that's not anything that one person is working on, I think Recoil is a totally fine solution for. It also creates a sort of data store that's external to your React tree, but that each component can get data from and update data in. So you don't have to pass stuff down and pass callbacks up and rewire stuff. Super easy to set up. a lot more simple conceptually, I think. It's got some cool features. It's a little bit less robust, I guess, than Redux, but it's super good, and I totally use it for all of my small to medium-sized projects. And again, the reason we want to use that is to have that separation of our model from our view, which is our React application, and our controller, which is the way the user interacts with it. So we don't, same way we don't want to, like in vanilla JavaScript, keep our data stored in the DOM. We don't want to keep our data stored in our React app if we can help it. We'll either, in a grown-up microservice kind of app, we'll store it on the cloud, or in an API. In an app like this, we're going to store it in a state management system like Recoil. So that's a little bit of background behind that. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And let's see how this works. Do I still have it up? Maybe, I don't know. Where is it? There is it. Okay. Let's go ahead and share screen. Where's the button? There it is. Screen one. Awesome. Get y'all moved over here. And cool. So I went ahead and created a new React app with create React app. Literally just said, I think you have to do npx now, npx create React app, name of the app. And so this is the basic what you get when you get it. It's got the spinny logo thing. I can start it up with, I want to start it here, npm start. And it looks just like any other React application. There we go. So starting from scratch. I'm just gonna get rid of all this junk in here. Get rid of that. I'm just gonna have each one. Here's my suite. We'll just do a simple counter. Cool. So we know it's there. So Recoil is a module package that you can install. So to install it, we just use this npm or yarn if you're into that. I can just do install Recoil. I think that's all we need to do. Then it'll go in there and we can see in our package JSON, there's Recoil there. Awesome. Everything's got vulnerabilities. Don't worry about it. Cool. There's our console. Sweet. So the way that Recoil handles the data store. So Redux keeps like a single monolithic data store. It's usually an object with a bunch of keys that has what's called a reducer that you put a bunch of big switch statements in to handle your actions, and that mutates the state. And you have one big chunk of state with a bunch of little pieces in it. And there's different ways to manage that and lots of cool tooling around it. Recoil doesn't keep one big state for you. It keeps a lot of little states for you, which sounds a little bit messier, and it could be argued. But if you wanted to do the same kind of thing, you could just have one piece of state that was a big object and do that. But sometimes it's nice to have little pieces to play with. So in Recoil, they're called atoms. I should have left the big spinny thing. They're called atoms. And basically, what you do is you define your atoms. You can just I usually put them in a new file called atoms.js. And so this is a file I'm going to import stuff from, and that will be my connection to the data storage. But to be able to access those, I need to be able to interact with Recoil as a whole in general. So you can put it in app. I like to put it in index just so it's completely out of the way. You don't need that. So here's the basic React app here. And so Recoil provides you with something called Recoil root, which you can import. Root, great. There. And basically Recoil root is a component, as we can see. But this is a component that contains other components, much like the strict mode thing does. And basically that says, I don't know if you've played with the children thing in components, but basically when you define a component, you can grab the children out of there. And that basically says everything that's inside this component is now in that, so you can play with it. So what Recoil and a bunch of like context Redux, pretty much anything that is going to put roots into your app, Recoil root says, hey, take the application component or whatever components inside me, and basically sort of insert little tendril hooks into it. So everything that is inside the Recoil root, I can use my Recoil hooks to access my atoms, which are going to be hooked up in Recoil there. So basically, this is all you need to do to set up Recoil on your app. Again, something like Redux, there's more moving parts, but it would be the same kind of structure. Cool. So Recoil set up now. So I am going to set up an atom. And so an atom is just an object that Recoil lets you build. So it gives you a function you can export from it called atom that will take an object and create one of these atom things for you. So I'm just going to go ahead and create one called count. So I'm going to say count, and I'm just going to import. I'm going to import atom from Recoil. I think it'll do it automatically. Atom, yeah. So I'm importing atom from Recoil, and I'm going to pass it an object. And so these Recoil atoms have 2 bits. They have a key. And this is just any unique key. I'm going to say count. It has a key and it has a default value. So I can go ahead and set the default value to whatever I want. I'm going to set it to 0. And that should be a string. And I'm not using this anywhere yet. It's giving me little green squiggles. So I'm actually going to export this. So now this is I've just written a module, a library, just how in, we export stuff from we export our components. Same thing. We're just exporting this object, this atom, as count. And so this atom function, this is a function that we are importing from the Recoil library that says, hey, Recoil, take this object, create this state data structure, and hook it into your Recoil root, wherever that is hooked up. And now we have access to some hooks that we can change this and look at it with. So,
sorry, can I?
No, go for it.
So this is like when we set up the use state with the destructuring, right? So like the variable and then the default value, like does each atom have a key and a default value?
Yeah, kind of. Actually, kind of exactly. So I'm gonna hook this atom into a couple components, and you'll see it looks very, very similar to what you see with the use state hook. It's just got this extra little overhead to it. Yeah, cool. So let's make some components. I'm just gonna put this is gonna be the counter. So for default function counter, this is gonna return a div that's count function. And I can put that in my app. And I'm not passing any props to it is the important part. Not passing any props, not passing any callback functions to change the state in here, just throwing it in there. I'm also going to create a, well, I'll just leave the counter in here for a second. So easiest case, the most flexible case is we're going to use that is called a selector. It's different than a CSS selector. It's basically looking at an atom and getting something from it, selecting the data from the atom. So this component is in our React tree, which is wrapped in the Recoil root. So it has access to all of the atoms that we've created with the atom function here. So we can just get the state much like we do a useState. So I can say const count, set count. But I'm going to use the Recoil state hook. So it's use Recoil state. Yeah. Use Recoil state. And I need to tell it which atom I want to play with. So in this case, it's going to be the counter atom. Count. So I'm going to let import it for me. No, not yet. Oh, let me call it something. Let me call it counter. I'm going to call this atom counter. Do I want anything different? Counter state. I'm going to call it count state. How about that? I don't think these need to match, but I'll make them match anyway because the key needs to be unique. And as long as these are unique, it all works out. So this is the count state or count atom. I'm going to call it count state. Super picky. So here's our counter. I'm going to get count state. There we go. So atoms is our module here that we wrote that we exported count state from. We're importing count state by name. And we're telling the Recoil state hook, hey, hook into that state that we set up. So now we have access to that atom. Sweet. So first I'm just going to put the count here. And that should be 0 still. Let's verify that we still have something. Hey, so it's reading data from our atom here. Cool. I also want to make a button to increment it, but I'm not going to put it in here because this is our counter, right? I want a separate button, so I'm going to put a button in app, and I'll put it here. Let me create it first. Button.js. It's not going to be called button. We already got this is a counter button. That's a counter button. Probably a better name for it, but this is just going to be a button that says make number go up. Cool. And then let's put it in our app. Counter button. And so we're importing that. We are just dropping that component there. And there's the button. Doesn't do anything yet because we haven't hooked it up. So we can get and set the state here with use Recoil state. This is just a display component though. We're never going to set the count inside here. So I don't think I want to use Recoil state. I want to use something else. So use Recoil state is just like use state. It gives you the getter and setter. Recoil also lets you just get it. So if I want to do const count equals use recoil value, that's it. I still need to tell it which one to use. So this is just getting me the value. It's not giving me a setter. And this is nice because it separates that responsibility. I know this component is never going to be setting the state. So I never have to think about it at all here. I'm just getting the count and using it. That's the works. That's the works. Cool. So we do want to set the state, but we're going to set it in our button. So I'm going to say onClick equals increment. That's going to be a function. So when I click it, I'm going to make the number go up. So to do this, I need to be able to set the state. So I can do the same thing here. Set count equals recoil state. And then we're going to do the count state. And then we're importing the count state atom again. And so now I can say set count in this function. I can say set count to count plus 1. And so just like with regular state, we're never going to be assigning to state, right? We are replacing it here with the setter. So this is setting the count to 1 when we click that. And so when an atom either uses the state or uses the value like that, we call it subscribing to that atom. So when a component is subscribed to that atom, that means that whenever the value of it updates, that component is going to re-render. So in theory, we should be able to click this button. It's going to, on click, it's going to run this function, run set count, which is part of the recoil state. And it's going to grab the state, add 1, and then it should, since counter is subscribed to it, it's going to re-render. Let's see if I'm lying. Yeah, it works. Great. Cool. We can only make it go up. I want to reset it as well. So I have one more button. Reset button. Built in. Cool. And this one is gonna say reset. Great. On click, say reset counter, and I'll write that function. So I want to set the count to 0 here, and so I can just use the state here again. I can say count set count equals state, and tell it it's the counter state. Count state. So again, we're importing that atom, and then I can just say set count to 0. So in theory, after I add the button to the app, counter button, reset button. And again, not passing any props down, not keeping state up here, not passing callbacks to do stuff. All of the stuff is incorporated in there. So if I hit reset, sets it to 0, up, 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 reset. Cool. One little fix. I never use the actual count in here because I don't need to read it. I just need to set it. So, oops. I'm just going to use, so just like I can just get the state, I can do recoil, OIL, set state, use recoil, set value, set, use set recoil state, that's what it is. And again, I need to tell it which atom I'm using. Unused import. Cool. So same function. I'm just using the recoil hook to grab just the setter for that state, and then saying set count, and should still work. Blammo. So cool. That's all you need to do to set up Recoil. And so now the cool thing is in the app, I can, I can take this and I can put it 5 components deep, and I don't have to pass anything down to it. It just grabs it from the store. I can move them around, put them inside as 100 components, and it doesn't care. I'm just grabbing the state and it's all good. It is almost as easy as setting up regular state. Basically, all you have to do is, for the basic case, set up an atom like this with a key and a default, and then just import it. And that's it. Questions so far? Do you feel like you could go and set this up in one of your own projects right now? 1 to 5, say. Yeah. Cool. Awesome. Nice. Yeah. And so it's I think it was you that was asking, do you want to just start with this, or do you want to start with state and do it later? I think it's really easy to pull out. If you say, const count set count equals use state 0, and then here we're going to say counter state equals state, and I'll passing all that stuff down. Really, all you have to do is, anywhere you're passing down state or a callback to set state, yank those out, and then inside your components, instead of doing use state here, just use the recoil state, recoil value or recoil set state. Build a simple, could not be simpler than that, and it's a go. So you can totally just use state normally, and rule 1, just get it working first. It probably probably is not 100% clearly not necessary for these projects, since Recoil is relatively new and we've been doing projects for a while. But I think it lends a certain clarity to what each component is doing, especially when you have those intermediary components that's just taking a prop and passing it down and it doesn't do anything with it at all. Being able to yank out that wiring really clarifies oh, this is just a container that contains cards for these products or whatever. It doesn't, I'm not a switchboard, I'm just a container, and then it just clarifies what each component is being used for when you can pull that state out. That's it. There's nothing wrong with using state the way we've been using it. I definitely, my process for doing a simple app normally is set up normal state, do it until I'm I don't want to use it anymore, and then just take literally 5 minutes and refactor it to use some Recoil, or 15 minutes for a Redux. But yeah, there's extra things you can do. You can do fancy getters and setters in here. They call it derived state. So I could put a get in here that was a function that returned, the number formatted a certain way or whatever. Those are nice to haves as far as I'm concerned. But if you want to incorporate those kind of transforms as part of the state, the atom, great, you can totally do that. But just using the super basics like this is, God, it makes life so much better. And they're again, minimal setup compared to something like
I have a question about the atom.js file. So when you're using these atoms, if you have more than one states occurring, or state that you're setting up, do we just keep adding to this one JS file, or do I have to create Okay, so you can continue to add like exports, consts, like whatever you need. It doesn't need to be like one file for each.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And so you can, we can create 100 atoms in here if we want to, and import them the same way. If we want to, where are we in the counter? Yeah, we'll just put it here, or we'll put it in an app. We can put it wherever we want. I could put it, the price there, and it would just import price from atoms, right? If you want to, you can clump these in, all the product atoms are going to be in this file, and all of the user atoms are going to be in this file, and then you can import them however you want. There's lots of different ways to organize it, but at this point, like this is just plain old JavaScript, really. So it's just like making exports and bringing them in where you need them. But you can put as many as you want in there. Doesn't matter. I'm gonna drop the so the website is recoiljs.org. I'll drop it in chat here. I would recommend well, I don't know, play with this. Go to their like little tutorial page. It's super short, super simple, really easy to follow. And yeah, and you can play with some more advanced stuff if you need to. I haven't really felt a need to use it in many of my projects, maybe here and there, but basic stuff will get you 99% of the way. Oh, awesome. Thank you, Chris. There's that tutorial page. Cool. And that's basically like, it's a real short lesson. There's not a lot to it. It provides so much use and so little code. But I'm happy to talk about this, answer questions. Any questions about other state management stuff I'm happy to talk about, or you can get back to working on your projects. What do you got for me? Awesome. Yeah, get at it. Cool. And I'll be around all the time as usual. So feel free to hit me up with any questions. I'll post this video in the usual places, and get back to y'all's faces. There you are. Cool. Thanks for hanging out. I'll see y'all in a little bit.